So recently, Tristan Tate, brother of Andrew Tate, did a bit of a whoopsie on Twitter. And it started with this tweet. The #1 sign of intelligence in 2023 is the ability to disagree on issues and stay civil. I'll follow men I disagree with on Twitter. I'll sit down and talk to them. I like opposing points of view. Okay, so before I break this down, why am I even deviating from my regular schedule to do this video? Well, because Tristan's manipulativeness and insecurity just struck me as so obvious and transparent that I'm totally confused at how he has so many goddamn followers. And so I just want to pick it apart and make it obvious to everyone else what exactly he's doing here. Plus it also concerns veganism, which means whatever he says, moving forward, we're gonna have to hear about it for at least a few months on repeat whenever we talk to someone about veganism. Now, to be totally fair, I don't really know that much about this guy, so I'm mostly basing this on a few tweets related to this subject. So it might be that outside this subject, his tweets are totally fine, but I'm guessing they're pretty representative. Okay, so back to it. So I don't know if I'd say the ability to disagree on issues and stay civil is the #1 sign of intelligence. In fact, I'd say it's probably more related to emotional regulation. But I definitely think being able to have civil disagreements is a positive quality. So we're off to a decent start. Now, in the next line, I don't know why he says men and not people. I don't know if there's some implication that he wouldn't extend the same treatment to women, or if it was just him typing quickly or whatever. But it jumped out to me as a little weird. Anyway, he goes on to say he likes opposing points of view. So cool. Now, Joey Carbstrong, a vegan activist, replies with, "Come on my YouTube channel and debate veganism." Seems like a pretty reasonable response given Tristan's tweet, but how does Tristan follow up? By saying, "There doesn't need debating. Eat what you want. I'll do the same." So just to go a little debate broy for a second, if one person thinks there's something to debate and another person thinks there's nothing to debate, that itself could be debated. So I think the response is sort of dead on arrival. Not to mention, if we're to take this principle at face value, it would mean Tristan would be okay with other people eating human babies. But it's actually worse than that, because obviously Tristan's smart enough to know that if someone wants to debate veganism, they're gonna be making the case that other people should go vegan. But Tristan's response implies he thinks the vegan position would be more like, I'm vegan and you can't stop me from continuing to be vegan. Now you might be saying, well, yeah, but maybe he's not clued into animal rights. Maybe he genuinely is somehow totally ignorant about the climate of the online vegan space. But if that's the case, this video of him becomes somewhat hard to explain.
Somebody decides not to eat meat and they really say, I don't want to eat meat, I don't think it's for me. That's fine. But when the vegans go too far is when they say humans shouldn't eat meat, no human on earth should eat meat.
As does this meme he shared. So it seems obvious, at least to me and to a lot of commenters, that this was him running from the debate, or at the very least professing some value and then immediately contradicting it. And given part of this guy's appeal and image seems to be that he's a top G alpha who's dominant, fearless, calm, cool, collected, whatever. At the very least, this response feels really off-brand, and at most it makes him look a little bit like a hypocritical coward. So I thought this was just the end of it, but apparently he got enough shit on Twitter that he eventually followed up with this tweet, and this is where it gets juicy. He says, you know what? Fine. The world's most boring YouTube stream coming soon. As soon as I'm allowed to stream, I'll sit on camera with this guy. Prepare to be totally underwhelmed and unconvinced of anything. We will return to our respective diets after I listen to him whining for an hour. DMs open. Yawn. So this seemingly simple tweet is doing a lot of work. So let's break it down. First, let's remember that original tweet where he says the #1 sign of intelligence is being able to disagree and stay civil. Well, it's an honest read of this response that it's embodying civility. Most boring YouTube stream. Prepare to be totally underwhelmed. After I listen to him whining. Yawn. Now, in a court of law, could he technically say all this was civil? Maybe. But again, any honest read of this is not one of civility. And to sanity check that, if you're not into veganism, imagine an issue you care deeply about that has some ethical dimension to it. And now imagine you want to discuss it with someone and they keep reiterating how boring and pointless it is. And then they characterize you or your position as whining. Are you gonna walk away and be like, wow, that was really the height of civility? I'm guessing not. All right, so what is this tweet trying to do? Well, I think it's obvious that he's trying to save face, and he does it in a superficially clever way. So he could have responded like this. I'm not contradicting myself, I'm not scared, I just know this is gonna be boring and it'll be terrible content. The problem with that response is that even though he's denying it, this would draw attention to him being scared and contradicting himself. The whole methinks he doth protest too much. So instead, he just makes a tweet going on about how boring it will be, implying that's the original reason he declined, without having to highlight what is, to my eye, the real reason. Also, acting like a topic is boring is just a generic rhetorical cheat code. It does the work of being dismissive and appearing to some as dominant without having to make any specific claims about the subject. It basically gets you out of having to talk about something without making you vulnerable to any specific criticisms, meaning it's perfect for topics you viscerally don't like, but don't actually know anything about. And the thing is, there's a sliver of truth to the boring objection. The best manipulation and disinformation has slivers of truth. That's part of what makes it compelling. As a content creator, you really aren't obligated to debate literally anyone, and part of of what you're doing on these platforms is trying to create entertaining content. But when you make a post specifically about debating, have already poked vegans with content before, and there's the presence of giant outlets like Piers Morgan who seem to think veganism is interesting enough to debate, this all falls kind of flat. Now to me, the most detrimental aspect of this response to his brand is that he's clearly triggered. Fine, period, yawn, period, use of the word whining, just the whole general vibe. This all reads like someone who is just annoyed, pouty, and condescending. Specifically the single words with periods after them. We've all gotten the fine text before, and we know exactly what it means. Hint for those of you who don't know, it means it's not fine. Now to me this all seems really transparent, and maybe you think so too, which is great. But he's got 1.7 million followers on Twitter, and I'm guessing a lot of this stuff flies under people's radar. And if you weren't really able to read between the lines before this video, well, that's what the video is for, so it's fine. I mean, it's actually fine, not fine. The other interesting thing is that he's even priming his audience on how they should react to the stream, which is to remain unconvinced. Does this seem like an open-minded person who really likes opposing points of view? Now I can already hear some of the responses to this video, so let's just address them here. Wow bro, it's just a period after a word. I didn't realize grammar meant you were triggered. Basically this is motivated skepticism. A period after a word doesn't 100% prove anything, of course, but even a simple Google search brings up plenty of results about how a single word followed by a period reads in text. Not that we need it because we already all know. Basically this person would never issue a criticism that demanded this much certainty or played this dumb about social conventions in other contexts. Do I know 100% that he was triggered in this tweet? No, of course not. Am I pretty sure he was triggered? Yeah, definitely. Bro, honestly, it's just a tweet. It's not that serious. How do you have this much time on your hands? Why don't you actually do something with your life? Now, criticism like this might have legs if, again, he didn't have 1.7 million followers on Twitter. This gives him a tremendous amount of influence, and any argument he uses against veganism, we vegans are gonna have to hear regurgitated mindlessly for the next several months. Bro, he's just trolling. That's part of what he does. This is my favorite response because it's the most obvious L on the face of it. As a reformed internet troll myself, I can let you in on a troll secret. If you, as a troll, can knock down someone's position with a logical sounding argument, you do it. If that person has a rebuttal that you've got no answer for, then you switch gears and say you were just trolling. Or you start making ridiculous statements to indicate you totally weren't interested in the topic to begin with, like you were just trying to piss them off. This is the rhetorical strength of having a trolly brand. The minute you're actually challenged or pushed into a corner, you get out your trusty security blankie and say you were just trolling the whole time. I'll also say I was pretty impressed with how not snarky Joey's responses were. He kept pressure on Tristan without actually seeming like a dick, and I think if you as a vegan are in those Twitter responses or on the YouTube livestream in the future, stay civil. For real. Drop sources, bring facts, bring logic, all that good stuff. But from an optics perspective, it's probably more important that you don't directly insult people or sound angry. People feeling like a community isn't a bunch of unhinged, overly emotional assholes goes a long way into people accepting, if not eventually joining that community. And yeah, I'll just say sorry to my subscribers for making this video. I do think that anything Tate says related to veganism will get copy pasted ad nauseum, so there's value in deconstructing stuff like this. So just be ready for the yawn though response. Probably the best strategy is to just ignore it and go on with whatever your point was. But you can also point out how one person's boredom has no bearing on the morality of something. Just imagine if someone was talking about the importance of nuclear disarmament and I said, yawn. You could also ask if they think it's yawn that pigs are put into gas chambers and castrated without painkillers. If they say yes, you can ask if they think the pigs consider that to be yawn. All right, so if you enjoyed this, hit that like button. And even if you didn't enjoy it, hit the like button anyway. And if you want to help me make this my full-time career, check out the Patreon in the description. And shout out to Ryan O'Neill, Tom Eisenbeis, NetBase News, Monstar, David Yastrzemski, and Maxwell Edison.